State University, where I teach a course in the history of stand-up comedy. I'm also a recovering stand-up comic, 20 years clean. And I still remember vividly one night after doing my comedy act, a very nice little old lady came up to me and said, "I really enjoyed your lecture tonight." I've been in academia ever since, what can I say? I was on campus at Penn State the other day, and I saw all the flags at half-mast, and I thought it was for Don Rickles, you know? But then somebody told me it was about John and Glenn. You know, either way, I love them both, but it's kind of ironically fitting that we're going to talk about roasting today from our speaker. In many ways, I suppose Don Rickles elevated the art, perfected the art, the roast. And it's my honor to introduce our speaker, Luvell Anderson, a PhD at Rutledge University, currently in Memphis, Tennessee, one of my favorite places in the world, at the University of Memphis. But he was also at Penn State University for a while, and that's great. That's a connection that we have. He has published articles on the semantics of racial slurs and on racist humor. His current writing projects include analyzing the linguistic underpinnings of racial humor, investigating the ways power interacts with our interpretive practices, and attempts to construct viable strategies for bridging certain racially motivated divides that foster miscommunication. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Luvell Anderson.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thanks to Sheila for... Hey. Well, thanks to Sheila for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. So what I aim to do is put some stuff on the table for your consideration. I'm going to be talking about roasting, and I'll say a bit more about the kind of roasting that I'm talking about. But before I get into any of that, I want to introduce the talk briefly by providing a foil for us to use to think about throughout the talk. So, without further ado, Q&A.
All right. How's everybody doing? All right. And you guys can all hear me okay? Yeah. All right. I know this guy can right here. Boy, this guy's ears are so big, he's laughing at jokes from the Yuck Yuck Club all the way to the other side of town. All right. And you, sir, you're doing okay? You're getting enough to eat. Is that even possible? Thank you, sir. But folks, I'm sorry. I'm going to get everybody tonight. I need nobody to save. I'm getting everybody, except for you, sir. I'm going to leave you alone. Just like your date did tonight. Hello! All right. Okay, who's next? Who is next? Hey, ma'am. I get it. You have breasts, okay? Jeez, but look at this chick over here. Her cleavage is giving the Grand Canyon an inferiority complex.
You skipped me.
Who's talking right now?
You, me.
Yeah, hey, man. Look at that pink shirt you got on there. Wow. Where'd you get that? QueerTshirts.com?
It's in support of breast cancer awareness. I am gay, though.
Okay.
Go for it. I can take it.
Oh, yeah. No, hey, yeah, don't you worry about that, man. Gloves are coming off. Okay. Right there. What's with the 3 drinks, man? With alcoholic much?
This is my pain.
He is in pain. Right now.
Make fun of the birds.
make fun of the, what did you say? Because here's the problem, sir, is it's really dark in here, and, sorry, are you burned? Because I can't make it out. Thanks so much. That's, I appreciate that. Oh, those burns.
Make fun of the robot voice.
Sir, I don't know.
Come on, I can take it.
Okay, well, you know what? I feel
For
like...
the wheelchair.
Look, sir, there is nothing funny about you being in a wheelchair. We can all...
But there is something funny about me being fat.
All right, fine. I got it. I'm doing it. I just didn't want to go after this guy because I didn't want him to kill me in my dreams. No? No, did you have Freddy Krueger's face is burned off? That's not... You ass. He said he could take it. That's what he said.
I thought I could, but I can't.
What does that mean? How do we even know if he's crying right now? Well, I don't know that sound. He just sounds like an electronic sound.
The tears. They burn.
He said he could take it.
All right. Are you sufficiently set up? Yeah, so what are the rules of the comedic roast? Initially, there might seem to be a tension between the comedic and roasting or insult, right? So the comedic is concerned, I think, with the funny and the lighthearted mirth of the fun, while insults are mean-spirited in nature, tools of injury. So how can the two be combined to produce something funny, right? So already it seems to be a sort of problem, right, between merging something that's sort of lighthearted and fun versus something that you basically target people with to attack. Now there are, of course, various versions of the roast. I'm going to be primarily focusing on the kind of thing you saw in the video, right? So comedians who sort of go after audience members, and that's part of the shtick, part of their act. But there are other sorts of forms as well. So there's the ritualized ceremony that you might know from, say, the Comedy Central roasts, or that featured prominently in the Friars Club roasts, right? Or the Dean Martin celebrity roasts, if you recall those as well, right? But then there are also more, so that's a more formal sort of roast. There's also the informal roast, the kind of roast that appears in everyday sort of interactions, right? So so practice in, for example, Black English, but also other communities as well, we'll refer to as the dozens or Catholic or Shonen, stuff like that. Snapping. As I said before, I'll focus mainly on the kind of thing that appears in comedy clubs, where comedians basically target our audience members. Now, obviously, mixing the comedic and insult isn't always successful, right? Just as adding too much salt to a dish can make it unpalatable, being heavy-handed with the insults can make an intended humorous utterance emotionally unbearable. So there's a delicate balance that must be struck to ensure that insults within the roasting context are taken in good fun. An analogous sentiment might have been expressed by Paul Mooney while explaining to Greta Van Susteren when racial humor is not racist. So I think this occurred around the time when Michael Richards had that infamous episode. And Mooney was on Greta Van Susteren, and she was asking him about it. And Paul said, you know, you can make racial jokes, but they have to be funny. And then he just tells Van Susteren, like, see, look, I'll show you. And then he proceeds to tell the following joke. So he's like, there's this little boy, he's in the kitchen with his mother was baking a cake. And baking a chocolate cake. And so the boy said to his mother, watch this. He grabs some of the chocolate, he rubs it on his face, and says, look, Mom, I'm black. And the mother slaps him, says, don't say that. Now go tell your father what you did. So the boy goes to his father. He still has the chocolate on his face. He says, look, Dad, I'm black. Father slaps him. He says, don't say that. Now go tell your grandmother what you did. Same thing, goes to his grandmother. Look, Grandma, I'm black. Slaps him. Don't say that. Go back to your mother. And then so he goes back to his mother, and the mother asks him, so what did you learn from this? And the little boy was like, well, what I've learned is I've been black for 10 minutes and already I hate you white people. So, Moody's point was, well, if it's funny, then it could work. If it's not funny, then not so much. What follows, I briefly entertain a few views that aim to explain the resolution of this apparent tension between the comedic and itself. I conclude with a suggestion that when they work, roasts employ mechanisms that divert attention away from the joke's content. It is when the mechanisms fail that roasting becomes disagreeable. Okay? All right. So, the Oxford English Dictionary tells an important story about the word insult that has the noun form deriving from a 17th century French term, insulte, denoting an attack. There's also a medical use of the term, referring to anything that tends to cause disease or bodily injury. According to Jerome Noûs, insult is about humiliation and the assertion of superiority, the assertion or assumption of dominance. In chapter 5 of the Poetics, Aristotle describes the comic in the following way. The ridiculous is a mistake or unseemliness that is not painful or destructive. This characterization presents comedy as sort of the opposite of insult. Okay? So whereas insult primarily seems to be aimed at injuring one, the comedic aims at ridiculousness, that's sort of non-threatening or sort of non-destructive. You know? So it certainly seems that the comedic and insult are incompatible. So if the two can be harmonized to produce comic amusement, either the comic must be related to pain, in ways that are transparent to us, or something happens to an insult that dismantles it and makes it defective within the roasting context. So first, a number of people have seen a relationship between comedy and tragedy. So consider the following from Walter Kerr. Quote, comedy, it seems, is never the gaiety of things. It is the groan made gay. Laughter is not man's first impulse. He cries first. Comedy always comes second, late after the fact, and in spite of it, or because of it. Comedy is really the underside of things. After the rock of our hearts has been lifted with effort and only temporarily, it appears in the absence of something and as the absence of something. Man's primary concern is with the rock, with his heart, with tragedy. Literary critic Northrop Frye echoes similar sentiments when he says the following, quote, tragedy is really implicit or uncompleted comedy. So if the sentiments of Kerr and Frye are correct, and comedy really is just the flip side of tragedy, which we might associate with misfortune and pain, then the funny might be more closely connected with injury than it might at first appear. That is, if we think, again, that comedy and tragedy are really sort of connected in this way, the apparent tension that I raised at the beginning, this might be apparent, right? That is, that comedy trades on pain. However, if a presumed connection does not completely resolve the apparent tension, then one might consider another option. One might consider whether insults are transformed in some way within roasting contexts. An obvious to me anyway, place to start is by suggesting that illocutionary acts typically performed in insults, are not so performed in a roast. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the language of illocution, This is a term that comes from philosopher J.L. Austin, who made a distinction between illocutionary acts, prolocutionary acts, and locutionary acts. So for Austin, locutionary acts are just the act of making an utterance, a meaningful utterance. Illocutionary acts are making an utterance with a particular kind of force, right? So when I assert something, or raise a question, make a command, or something like that. So as you understand the things that I say, or what I'm doing or what I'm saying, right, is to figure out, to recognize the sort of intentions behind what I'm saying, and what I intend for you to sort of recognize by saying something. The prolocutionary effect is has to do with the effects that are affected in the responses of the audience from what I say. Right? So if I say something and I convince you, or I scare you, or whatever, that feeling of being scared, that response of being scared or convinced, Austin's going to refer to that as the prolocutionary effect. Okay? So in the case of insults, within the roasting context, you might think, well, typically insults are intended to affect certain kind of derogation or feeling of insult or offense. Right? Within the roasting context, however, doing something else. I'm not intending to target or attack the object of my utterance. So presumably, roasts are not aimed at injuring a target. A different illocutionary act is involved. So perhaps the linguistic mechanism undergirding the speech act in roasts is something like irony or sarcasm. One classical definition of irony is the following. So irony is the figure used to convey the opposite of what is said. In irony, the words are not taken in their basic literal sense. However, if this is how we are to understand irony, it's not clear that it helps us describe what's going on in roasts. This is because the ironic utterances are employed to communicate some specific content, whereas roasts don't seem to be doing that at all. Communicating content just isn't a goal of the roast. The speaker is not really trying to get anyone to believe anything, or at least nothing more than the general idea that they are superior in wit, or something along those lines. So it seems that the speech act before us is one that seeks to render the utterance semantically inert for the most part. The speaker is not trying to have us focus on the truth or falsity of the utterance, but rather wants to take our attention off of the content in a way that brings us to appreciate something else. Perhaps something about the form of the utterance. I will return to this idea momentarily. So then, now let us look at a couple of possible approaches to explaining the resolution of the tension. So first, one might think that when a roast is successful, it is clear to all involved that the roaster doesn't mean what they're saying, that they're just putting one on. That is, the audience recognizes that the speaker doesn't really mean any harm or injury. If you're in the labels, we can call this view the talking shit view. Talking shit view trades on serious, non-serious distinction, often raised to explain why we shouldn't take umbrage at things uttered jokingly. One is being non-serious when just talking shit. And the appropriate response is also a non-serious one. Right? So if someone's talking shit and you respond in anger, then you've either misunderstood what was happening, or you're just too thin-skinned and don't have not enough system. This view, as I understand it, is really a version of an intentionalist view that basically says doing X requires an intention to X, or it requires the possession of an intentional attitude. But the intentionalist move is unsatisfying, since many of us believe we can perform actions unintentionally. Okay? So for instance, if we were all to collaborate to throw a surprise party for Sheila, and I inadvertently say to her, I'll see you at the party tonight. I reveal the party to her, even though I didn't intend to. So I've done X without intending to. Further, the view does not account for the feeling that there are limits limits or boundaries to what is fair game. Not just anything is up for grabs in a roast. One can go too far. For example, much of what Mariana Mostov, who's a writer for Romper, saw as problematic of the roasting of Ann Coulter during the Comedy Central roast of Lowe was that many of the jokes focused on her looks and womanhood. Mostov argues that this was lazy, but that many of the jokes took aim at Coulter while needlessly dragging others into the process. I'm being deflated. All right, so that's the target ship view, right? The tension is resolved once you recognize that the speaker's just talking shit. It doesn't really mean what they say seriously. Perhaps the target ship view falls short. Another approach that is intimated in the Key and Peele skit that we watched turns on inclusion. So recall that Peele's character calls out the comedian for skipping him. Right? When Key's character tries to avoid roasting him, other audience members probe why they were fair game, but others weren't. This might suggest that targeting everyone and making it known that everyone, at least within that particular context, is fair game, puts the audience at ease. Not feeling subject to being especially singled out releases the tension between the comedic and insult. So we might, again, if you're into the labels thing, call this view the everybody can get it. On this view, everyone recognizes that the price for being able to laugh at the roasting of others requires accepting their own objection to it. Of course, this only applies to the kind of roasting presented, and you might think it only applies to the kind of roasting presented in the Key and Peele skit. It doesn't apply to things like the Comedy Central roast, at least doesn't seem to be. Or if it does so in an attenuated sense. That is, what makes it the case for the presenters, everyone on the dais to roast the pseudo figure and vice versa, right? Is that they're all committed to being subjected to that treatment. But that doesn't include the audience, right? So if we were to try to explain the permissibility of laughing at roasting and insults as being subject to the practice, okay, this is not going to explain what's going on in those particular ritualized celebrity roasts. This might not be entirely satisfactory either, however. So at best, it allows us to say that no one participant or audience member has any more claim to be upset than any other. That is just in case the insults are leveled equally. But it is not obvious how targeting everyone reduces or changes the character of the insults. After all, it is possible to insult multiple people in one sitting. Okay. So we've seen that the intentions are insufficient for explaining how insults are rendered non-injurious. We've also seen that merely spreading around the love is also insufficient as an explanation. I now want to return to the idea I raised earlier. That is, that the speaker wishes to divert one's attention away from the content of the utterance. Recall Aristotle's definition of the comic again. Quote, the ridiculous is a mistake or unseemliness that is not painful or destructive. There may be something in the idea of presenting something one's audience knows or can perceive to be utterly ridiculous that is disarming in a way that opens up insults to the possibility of being an object of comic amusement. Often in roasts, the speaker employs hyperbole. For instance, when he asks whether it is even possible for an audience member to get enough to eat, we understand the statement to be literally false. And so does the immediate target of the joke. Yet, while the hyperbolic content plays a role in the joke's reception, I submit that it is the manner in which it is presented that does the heavy lifting. The presentation of the material is done in a way that gets the audience to focus on the ridiculousness of the delivery rather than on the content of what's being delivered. That is, the audience is distracted away from considering the content. Let's call this view the distraction view. I presume the distracting nature of the delivery disarms the audience, causing them to revel in a perceived ineptness of attack, so that it gets taken up. It's not an attack at all. You might think, for example, that a superiority view of humor comes into play here to explain what makes the situation funny, right? So that basically, the presentation of the content is done so in a way where it's initially sort of perceived as an attack, but it's so bumbling that the target of the attack sees it as basically an inferior action, and so are therefore provoked to humor, right, by recognizing their superiority to their would-be attacker. The view also makes it possible to explain what goes wrong when roasting fails to be funny. The audience fails to be distracted, and thus focus on the content of the utterance, which short circuits amusement. Now, one might follow up by saying, well, wait a minute. There seems to be occasions when audiences laugh at insult humor because of its content. Okay, so, for example, recall the Correspondents' Dinner where President Obama roasted Donald Trump. I don't know about you, but I know I was laughing my ass off. I thought the attacks were deft and like spot on. So again, I think this is true. Right? But I submit that the amusement one likely finds in Obama's roast is due to animosity one holds against the target of the insult. Here one is just relishing in a deserved comeuppance one perceives the target again. However, this view focuses on those occasions where the audience, the distraction view, that is, focuses on the occasions where the audience has no animosity or any ill feelings or attitudes towards the target. Right? So one where you're not disposed to already hate the target, and therefore basically or really attacking the target. Right? Thinking about those occasions in which one has no such ill feelings toward the target, but still has this responsive comic amusement. How to explain those occasions? And that's what the distraction view is attempting to explain. Okay, so I think the distraction view is a plausible contender, but there are still some details that need to be worked out. What is not yet clear on this view is how we determine the limits of the sayable in a roast. What makes something off limits? Well, given the appeal to distraction, we might start by suggesting that the material be ridiculous enough to cause destruction. In his assessment of the Ann Coulter roasting, Ian Crouch, who is a writer for The New Yorker, said that the jokes, quote, didn't go far enough to be funny. This suggests that the content of the jokes were not outrageous or ridiculous enough to divert attention to the delivery rather than to the content. The content of most of the jokes, as Crouch noted, was quite similar to the kinds of vitriolic statements about culture that one already finds online. So as such, the jokes read as straight-ahead insults rather than inept attacks that successful roasting exhibits. So in a way, you might think of many of the barbs aimed at culture during the Low roast as basically directed indirect quotations of what people already think and have already said online. And so in some ways, quite predictable as an attack. I'm also skeptical that anything like a universal discourse exists, where we can say that something is distracting in the relevant way for everyone. It's quite possible, even likely, that the crowd will be mixed. Some will find material delivered in a distracting way, while others in that same crowd will not. So this will at times make it quite difficult to determine the success of a roast. Lastly, the very notion of a limit may be transitory and ultimately futile. I believe it was George Carlin who said, I think it's the duty of the comedian to find out where the line is drawn and cross it deliberately. In the end, roast may be the most direct exercise in which comedians are searching out and deliberately stepping over lines. In this regard, Carlin calls our comedians to be what Charlie Murphy once referred to as habitual line steppers. Thank you.
The closest most of us get to roasts is grading undergraduate papers. Right? You get the good papers, you get the weak students who do what they can, but then you get the piece of crap papers where you know this was written the night before by somebody who could do a better job. I got my red pen out. Is this ethic applicable at all? Is it similar enough of a situation? Did that tell me what I can and cannot write in the margins of that piece of crap?
Yeah, it seems like a different exercise. It's presumably you're trying to improve the student's performance. And yeah, I mean, so suppose that roasting can be an element in helping a student see where they've fallen short. But it can't be the only thing that goes on. And you just sort of really have a conversation about whether or not roasting fragile students who probably know they wrote some shit work. But that's going to be helpful at all.
Oh, I was thinking, yeah, it's really interesting, the examples that you used. And I was thinking of yet a third type of possible roast. So Jeff Ross, you know, Comedy Central's Jeff Ross. Do you know where he goes in and roasts the prisoners in Texas and then goes and roasts the cops up in Boston? Do you know that roast?
I don't.
Okay, maybe just to describe it real quickly, he seems to be doing something different because it's not, he's roasting both prisoners and the guards and police, and it's not like he's just, the content is relevant. You know, I mean, he's bringing up Black Lives Matter, he's, you know, talking about police violence to the police when he's roasting them. So it seems like the content matters, so it's not distraction. But it seems, it seems like it's not quite the other case where he's just simply taking away power from the police by laughing at them the way, you know, you laugh at Trump. In this particular dynamic, it seems like he's trying to get the prisoners and the police and the guards to all laugh together. And so content seems to be relevant and not just, you know, laughing down at the, you know, pulling down at Trump, you know.
I see. So I guess that's one thing I have to do is look to see it. So you're understanding it as, so you're pitching it as a roast, as an example of a roast.
I think it's a roast. He's the roast master in General Comedy Central, and so it is called a roast. But it's just, so there may be yet a third category. So there may be another or something that is a roast where the content does matter, because it seems in that case, you know, when he's mocking what happens in the prison and the criminal system, it has a real political content to it, you know?
So I wonder if that might be satirical rather than roasting. So I think that much of humor has these sorts of elements to them, and so they can sort of trade. So I think, for example, satire and roasting, in that sense, share something in common, where there's a kind of directed evaluation of a target, right? I don't think that in satire, the object is to distract one from the content and to focus on the form. So their content seems like central and primary in the satire, whereas for what I'm calling his roasts, the content is, so it's there on the surface, but it's really trying to trigger a different, a response to something different. So I wonder whether or not what's going on in the Ross example is doing more of the satirical thing rather than the roasting thing.
Or it might just be a hybrid category.
Or it could be.
You know?
But I have to check that out because I don't know that example. So I have to to watch it in the room again.
To follow up on Steve's question, what about not when you're marking the paper and you're making comments in the margins, but when people quote from their student papers on Facebook or Twitter, what about that in those cases?
Yeah. So I confess to doing a pseudo version of this once. Though it wasn't of a student of mine. It was of set up. So this is like the end of the semester, probably like the last 2 weeks of the semester. And the student walks in like 15 minutes late, sits down for like 5-ish minutes, and then pops her head up and says, "Oh wait, this isn't accounting?" And then so I roasted that ass on Facebook. And I didn't have any qualms on doing that.
It almost seems like it's worse because the person isn't there.
So I wonder about this, right? So there is in addition to the category that Cindy raised, there's an additional category that might be at work, where again the target of the roast isn't present, or at least you're not doing face to face, right? So there are these occasions, and primarily on social media, right, where a public figure, or not even a public figure, but some other thing that happens on social media exposed, and people sort of roast it. Right, so, and this happens across all sorts of lines, right? So sometimes it focuses on a person's appearance, sometimes it focuses on a person's actions, right? So Steve Harvey went to the White House and met with Trump. He got roasted on like Twitter and so forth, where some people sort of targeted him and pilloried him, basically. So there, the target itself isn't involved in the practice, and it's not similar to the thing that you described.
But there the target's not anonymous.
That's right.
Student, you don't say their name, right?
What's that? But I don't know that the anonymity does much work. It's the non-involvement of the target in the roasting itself, right? At least.
But the anonymity makes it more difficult for the target to be involved. So they have no way to defend themselves.
Yeah. In either case, it doesn't seem like there's a distracting happening there. I mean, really, it's focusing on its own feature and quite specifically pointing that out. So, yeah, think about those cases. It crossed my mind, but it didn't fit what I wanted to say, so I included it.
I was just going to follow up on the Jeff Ross thing. It's interesting because when he goes into those institutions, he will work the crowd in the way that the video. So he's not like just performing material. He'll call out, look at this guy's teeth, like whatever, and then the next. So he'll sort of work down the line. So maybe that makes it more sort of because it's satirical, but he is still targeting an individual, and everyone is sort of after that person. I'm curious, because when I think of like really famous roasts, you think of like Patrice O'Neill, or you think of Jeff Ross, and so there's an element of hierarchy also in roasting. The idea that the person is, Patrice O'Neill, for example, built up he's a New York comic, he's dead now, built up a reputation of being very intimidating, and that was part of his comedic lore. So how does that fit into? Because all of these, the examples, the sort of the theories are all about the idea of play or of not focusing on the truth.
Right.
But then you think about the people who are very excellent or notorious for it, and it's reputational, it is hierarchical, it is status driven.
Yeah, so I wonder whether or not that persona itself is doing some of that offsetting work, right? Where it's also diverting attention, right? So much of the focus is on the boldness of the persona, rather than on the content of what they said.
I see.
That'd be my initial response.
Yeah.
What's going through my mind is that when roasts work their best, and there is always some element of truth, you know, at the heart of a great roast, but the targets have to be kind of willing. There's kind of an implicit contract that because I'm here tonight, I'm game to whatever you have to say. The televised roasts especially work that way. It's kind of interesting in the professor-student transaction. They don't know they're going to be a target of a roast, nor are they willing, and you know, you're delivering that. And the thing that I'm thinking about is a friend of mine who was working the comedy club in New York, and there were some Hispanic folks sitting in the front row, and they begged him to do some roasting of Hispanic culture. And he was reluctant, but then he did it. After the show, he went into the kitchen where a lot of the workers were Hispanic, and they were very hurt by this roasting because they were not willing conscripts, you know, and that's kind of a part of it when you see these televised roasts. You know, you got to be game when you go to a comedy show and you know the comedian is a roaster. You're kind of prepared for that and willing if it comes your way. Related to that, I wonder maybe if you can comment, is there a connection between the art of roasting and the art of comedians dealing with hecklers?
Yeah. So, yeah, so I think that the dealing with hecklers thing, he's closer to the sort of everyday context and interpersonal conversations, right? So, like, it's the kind of thing that I think are illustrated by like the dozen snapping and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So where it's an interaction where it's quite clear you're in a kind of game blitz, right? So, yeah, I went to a show in St. Louis a long time ago, and the comedian was Kenny Howell. I think he was going by Naturally Ignorant at the time. And there was a heckler in the crowd saying stuff back to him. And they had this sort of back and forth exchange, and then ultimately Howell responded to him to the last thing that the heckler said. He was like, "I'm sorry, I don't speak Tangerine."
Oh. Right.
Which effectively shut up the heckler, right? Because it was at that point the heckler realized that it was not going to be able to outwit Howell. Again, there, I do kind of want to say that even in those sort of back and forth in the personal context, that it's the manner of the delivery of the content of the utterance, the form of the utterance, right, that's doing the work. So first of all, making it so that one responds with laughter to the utterance rather than sort of, you know, knees and elbows, hands and feet. Because even in those sort of exchanges, there's a fine line between hurling insults to disarm one via wit, and it's insulting and attacking where you know that in a minute it's going to come to blows. And presumably you might think that something like this distraction thing is going on, right? That it is that, again, it's the manner in which the utterance is being communicated or expressed that is the focus rather than the content of it.
It's a really interesting talk, and I hope this kind of touches upon something that you're saying. I guess what I want to do is put a little pressure on the historical connection between roasting and even kind of harmful humor and comedy, because I think Aristotle's done, and I mentioned this actually in another talk, where he's kind of sanitizing our conception of comedy. He doesn't really know what to do with something like Aristophanes comedy. If you look at Aristophanes comedy, there's just open boast. There's this between, they're punching at each other, the comedians themselves, it's a competition. So there it's kind of we're in agreement, we're part of this game by being a comedian, we're going to punch each other. It's a lot like what I find in battle rap, where they're going at each other. There's a punching at the politicians, but that's again because they're high, and there it's almost, I don't know if it's meant to do harm, but it comes out of what's called sawdust poetry, or blame poetry. And you get up and just roast the person in a way that can be harmful, and I'll just give an instance of it. If I'm reading the Apology right, the argument is that Aristophanes' roast of Socrates, he's the serious accuser, and that's what got Socrates killed. Now, whether that's true is a whole other story, But Plato wants to kind of give us this impression that the reason Socrates got killed was because of this roast in the clouds. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I don't know what to do with it, but there might be a tighter connection between comic, I guess I would say, and roasting, or the origin of comedy than Aristotle made, because that's a non-harmful. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a sort of similar question, although it's not as fancy schmancy as that.
Okay.
But it seems to me that the times when an insult can work as a joke or distract and appeal to its form, they're really narrow conditions, and the audience is most relevant. And maybe there even needs to be something like friendship or a shared understanding in the form of a script or a dais, like some kind of content that's relevant to the audience in a really strong way, makes those kinds of jokes work. So that's why the roasting can appeal to something that's true but distract, because they're really narrow conditions when it can work. And so it seems like maybe something like friendship or contextual understanding has to be there.
Yes. That's a footnote that I didn't point out explicitly. Thank you for reading out that footnote out loud. Yes, I do. I was sort of assuming that in the background, but I didn't say so explicitly. Yours is an interesting point. I'm thinking about more. I think I was trying to hit at some of that earlier when I tried to draw the connection between comedy and tragedy. But it's definitely something I need to think about more, to say something more explicitly about.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting parallel to tragedy. It's not an enjoyable thing to watch a roast unless the roastee is of a certain stature, you know, and as of that the insults wouldn't actually destroy this person's career or life. They're so popular, so powerful in the show business or something, that they can take it and they can stand it, and in that way a mark of prestige that they couldn't possibly be brought down. And so your talk makes me think about how close that is to tragedy, where it's not tragic if someone who isn't of certain stature falls, certainly in the Aristotelian sense. So that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. That's
interesting.
I can't think of all the names of the comedians, but and I don't know if you mentioned this before, I'm sorry I came a bit late, but what about the roast where the roaster refuses to roast? So there's like one where Norm Macdonald, these are two Comedy Central roasts, right? One where Norm Macdonald like gets up and just starts reading out of a book. And there's another one where somebody's like roasting Aziz Ansari. It's like, you know, you're from the South, so you must have like these incredible perspectives on what it's like being Asian American in the South, right? Like, so how do you see those fitting in, like a refusal to roast is part of a roast?
Yeah, so I said that Sandberg one in particular, I think is like a meta roast.
Okay.
Where it's kind of treading. It was like a roast of the roast itself, right?
So, I guess when you mentioned the student paper, it brought back all these bad memories. Like my first semester in grad school, my advisor gave me my final paper back, and on the top it was 2 pages of single space type comments, and the first comment, I kept this for. He said, surely this is only a possible paper that you want to turn in, and you only expect the most critical of comments. And then he lists these 2 pages of comments, and I'm going, no, this is my final paper. so, on the one hand, right, it reminds me of, I don't know if you saw this roast where, I think it was Shaquille O'Neal being roasted, Jamie Foxx, and there's this guy that gets up, and he fails in his roast, and then Jamie Foxx turns on this guy, out in your conscience, right? And so on the one hand, this roaster turns into being roasted, but like my paper, it was kind of instructive. The roast was kind of, I don't know, pattern interrupting on one level that said, hey, you're doing a terrible job here. But I'm gonna add some levity to it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to light into you. And so, you know what? You can be a better philosopher. You can be a better roaster. Just learn from this instance, this train wreck. You know, keep it in your drawer forever, and then do a better job next time. So, what would you say about the ethics of that? You know, because it was rather effective, but it was bloody.
I haven't seen that comic since.
Yeah, you're right. There's some thin skin, right?
Or you just might have figured out that, well, you know, that business degree I was pursuing, I mean, yeah. The ethics of it. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, can we go back to the Paul Mooney though, where Paul Mooney said, you know, so if you tell a joke about race, it has to be funny. And so that was like barely funny, which to follow up, I don't know if you were at the comedy, the open mic, but I was talking about grading students' papers with emojis, and that came from a real experience of having gotten one's paper back with an upside down smiley face with X's over his eyes. Now that's a roast, right? Like, the problem is like when you make the comments, because then there's content, right? When if we're talking about the distraction like that, that's yeah.
So those seem to be more complex cases to me, because that there also seems to be some kind of instructive goal. So it's not just about making fun of target, but it's also about providing some sort of valuable content that hopefully improves some sort of way. I don't ever think of roast as that. So yeah, I don't know if it's a pure roast. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering actually if you say more about roasting and intimacy. Not just that like good roast requires friendship or something, but it's like more bonding, I think, for a lot of people, a lot of comics, especially. Like if you listen to the East Coast comics, they sit around in the cellar, and that is like how they bond with one another. Also, Zizek has sort of mentioned how insulting jokes can be a form of like transcendent racial boundaries and stuff like that. So why is this like, is it like, maybe you think of it like play fighting in animals, like how could roasting actually build bonds between people?
I mean, so one thing, I'm not an anthropologist, but if I were to play one, I might say something like, well, engaging in those sorts of practices indicates some kind of comfort or familiarity with the other that you're engaged with. Right? And so you take these things that usually are understood as hostile, and if you can present it to one another in a way that makes it non-hostile, non-threatening, that can build a kind of community between the participants, right? Because it sort of basically opens one up in a certain kind of way that suggests, well, this thing that's usually dangerous and pointy or whatever, I can apply it to you, you can apply it to me without fear of injury. And that you might think can build some kind of trust between them.
I'm sort of trying to wrap my head around a question that I don't know quite how to ask, but it's going sort of back to your initial example here, and thinking about the limits of what can be said even within the sort of ritual space of the roast, right? So I'm kind of thinking, the roast seems to fit into sort of Huizinga's ideas about Buddhic space as like a cordoned off space where certain rules are suspended, right? But within that space there are still rules, right? So here we saw, right, an attempt to negotiate what the rules are around someone who is truly pathetic. I'm thinking of a friend that I have who we really trade insults to each other. That's our way of bonding, who at one point got cancer, and I was like, oh shit, how am I going to talk to my friend? Because that's the obvious thing I have to joke about, but I'm pretty sure I can't joke about that. So I guess I'm trying to think too about, right, it's easy to think of the roast as a space in which all rules of discourse are suspended, but that's clearly not the case, right? So if you've thought a bit about the delimitations of, right, it's expanded, but it's still not a total free-for-all.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing that I hinted at in the paper was the level of ridiculousness of the utterance, right? So that it has to be so ridiculous that it triggers the thought that, well, this can't be serious. So that doesn't really tell us where the line is. Is it like Carlin or something like that, right? Maybe there isn't really a line to begin with. I mean, there's a kind of presumed line. But it's always negotiable.
And the game is always about approaching that line without crossing it, right?
Of course, it's always about going over it.
Well, going over a line, but still within the ludic space, right? Or if there's disagreement on the line, right? Think about, I'm sure I came to the conference, but I'm sure Dan Natasha's come up more than once over the last couple of days, right? Where I think he mistook what was a heckling ritual, and there was disagreement on what was the ritual, right? So a line got crossed, but that's a different kind of line because we all kind of agreed that was a line he shouldn't have crossed within the space of that particular ritual, right? So there are, I would argue, lines that can be crossed that still trigger moral panic, trigger outrage, but then there are the lines of like, what kinds of lines you can cross safely within the space of the rows.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're talking about, again, formalized roles in sort of standard settings, sometimes I just think the respecting of lines by comedians is just antithetical. So it's that perhaps I think what they see as part of their job is to obliterate those lines. That wherever a line is established, that's the thing that we need to be attacking. So part of what makes the best comedy the best is its sort of risk-taking nature.
So I think we got to stop because there's another session in 5 minutes. Let's thank Luvell.